Welcome back to episode 8 of Messiah, an introduction to a complicated Jewish topic. This is Rabbi Juan Marcos Bejarano Gutierrez. And if this is the first time you're joining us, be sure to check out the previous 7 episodes. What we've done is we're tackling the tough subject of Mashiach, of Messiah. But what we're doing is the tact that we're taking is that of an academic approach. And what I mean by that is that we are looking at the topic of Messiah from a academic perspective. We look at the history of the biblical texts, of other texts from the Second Temple period. We're looking at the Hebrew or the Aramaic itself, and we're looking at the historical construct of these passages. Eventually, we'll go back and add in elements from different commentators from later Jewish history, but from the beginning, we just want to look at the historical context, the biblical passages themselves. And what we did is we started off by looking at every passage in the Tanakh that specifically referred to Mashiach. And we determined that there were 4 categories that this term applied to. Kohanim, to priest, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, to Nevi'im, to a Navi, to the prince, to the prophets, or to a prophet, to the Melech, to the king, and also to a Nasi, to a prince. And we looked at all the passages that relate to those specific offices or those specific posts in the context of the Kingdom of Israel and Kingdom of Judah, or under the United Monarchy. So what we've done since episode 7 is we sort of transition, and now we're going to start looking, or we've been looking at biblical passages that are usually termed messianic, even though they don't specifically reference Mashiach or an anointed one, but they talk about some kind of future redemption, some type of expectation of the restoration of Davidic kingship, but more importantly, some kind of a future expectation where the situation for the Jewish people, for the Kingdom of Israel, will be restored. The foreign rule will be eliminated. There'll be a time of peace, prosperity, many different things. It's an idyllic future. And even though, again, there's not a specific reference to Mashiach, you often find passages that relate to my servant or something of that nature. So there's an indication that there's something in the future that is being looked at. So let's go ahead and start. Just as a brief review, give me a second here. We'll bypass this information. You can look at that in previous slides or previous episodes. Sort of set out the philosophy in that quote. And this is from the previous passage. So the recommended title for this episode is Messianic Speculation in Israel from the 1st through the 17th centuries. This is by Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver, and it was written in 1959. I believe Rabbi Silver was a Reform rabbi. But, this is the approach that we're taking is we're open to all inputs from all scholars. So whatever the background is, we're interested in a search for truth, intellectually, historically, and I think we could say spiritually as well, because all of these different elements inform the concept of Mashiach and what that means, and how different groups within the people of Israel understand that term. And even groups outside of that. Of course, Christianity is obviously founded on the premise of the idea of Mashiach. So we want to look at the entire spectrum of the historical experience of that term and how it has been anticipated and speculated on. So let's go ahead and continue. Skip the table of contents. And a little bit under the weather today, so I do apologize for that. Just as review, Mashiach is a Hebrew word derived from the root mashach, to anoint. And what we found is that there were approximately 40 references to that specific term or to grammatical derivatives of it, which applied to priests, prophets, kings, or prince, as we noted in the introduction. So last time we talked about future redemption in the book of Jeremiah, or Yirmiyahu Hanavi, in chapter 23, 5 through 8, and there was something that I actually forgot to mention that I wanted to correct. In verse 6, we read the following: In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. and this is his name whereby he shall be called. The Lord is our righteousness. Now, in verse 5, it's clear that there is a future king that is being referred to. It's a shoot of David. It's a scion, a descendant of David that shall restore true order and kingship to the kingdom of Judah. But we assume, in some sense, eventually the entire United Kingdom. But what I had failed to point out was that the last king of Judah was Zedekiah, who replaced Jeconiah or Jehoiachin. And Zedekiah is from the word tzedek, where we derive the word righteousness, or tzedakah, that kind of thing, the tzaddikim, the righteous ones. And then he has the sort of abbreviated form of the tetragrammaton of the four-letter name of God. So it means the righteousness of Hashem, or the righteousness of God. And so what happens is that Jeremiah is making a play on words, because we know from the book of Kings and the book of Jeremiah that Zedekiah was not a righteous king. Jeremiah the prophet served as his counselor, and it's clear that, from his perspective, that he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and you can reference those two passages in Kings and Jeremiah to prove that. So just an interesting point there about Zedekiah, and we'll continue on with the next passage. And where I'm deriving these passages from is from Raphael Batai's The Messiah text. So I'm using that as a basis, and of course eventually I'll be adding a lot more information to that, but this is basically the starting point for passages that are not specifically referencing Mashiach. So let's go look at Isaiah 42, 1 through 4, and we read, Hen avdi et mach bo, Behiri ratzta nafshi netati ruchi alav, mishpat lagoyim yotzi, lo yitzak velo yisa, velo yashmiya bachutz kolo, kane ratzutz lo yishbor, ufishta checha lo yecha bena, le'emet yotzi mishpat, lo yichhe velo yarutz ad yasim, ba'aretz mishpat, ul torato iyim yeyachelu. And we'll go ahead and look at the translation of that, which says, Behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall make the right to go forth to the nations. He shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed shall he not break, and dimly burning wick shall he not quench. He shall make the right to go forth according to the truth. He shall not fail, nor be crushed, till he have set the right in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his teaching. Now, one thing that I've forgotten to mention, of course, is that Isaiah predates the prophet Jeremiah, but this is the specific order that Raphael Patai put these in. So we're not necessarily following a chronological approach, but in any case, it's clear that this servant is, I think it's clear that it's a future king. In the context of the history of Israel and Judah, once the kingdom is divided, in the case of the northern kingdom, all the kingdoms are all the kings are corrupt, basically. I mean, I guess you could sort of argue that maybe King Jehu wasn't to a certain extent, but even he is regarded as having failed to live up to the ultimate standard of Hashem, in the fact that he allowed the two bulls to remain standing. And of course, in Judah, you have a mixture. You have some kings that are good and some that are bad. But here is one of the passages that is definitely considered idyllic in some sense, although I think it's not so removed from an idea of the establishment of a righteous kingdom. It doesn't have to have, I think, at this particular level, a supernatural component. I mean, it's the rectification of corruption and the disobedience to the Torah, but it's something that is looked forward to in the future. So as always, I try to keep these short because I like to do that, and I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. But if you have the opportunity, please visit cryptojewesheducation.com. It's not related to the topic that we are discussing in this series of videos, but I think there's a lot of good education on that if you're interested in Sephardic studies. And please join us back for episode 9, which I will be trying to work on as quickly as possible. And if you like the video, please feel free to give a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.